We live in interesting times. Today's stories. Kenya's Public Prosecutor's Office announces the arrest of a top judge. A United Nations probe says there are possible war crimes in Yemen. The U.S. responds to Iran's lawsuit against sanctions at the ICJ. A new polling tool launches ahead of the U.S. midterms. Plus, the Richmond night market heats up this summer in Vancouver. Hello everyone, I am Sarah Nackman bringing you stories from around the globe. And this is Eagle News of Washington, D.C. The Kenyan Public Prosecutor's Office announces the arrest of Kenya's Deputy Chief Justice, the country's second highest judge, on corruption charges. Philomena Mwilu is one of 7 members of the Supreme Court and was among the judges who nullified President Uhuru Kenyatta's initial election win in August 2017, leading to the controversial holding of a fresh vote. Mwilu was arrested Tuesday. Philomena Mwilu is one of 7 members of the Supreme Court and was among the judges who nullified President Uhuru Kenyatta's initial election win in August 2017, leading to the controversial holding of a fresh vote. Kenya's Director of Public Prosecutions, Nordine Haji, told journalists there was evidence she had abused her office for personal gain and accepted money as a gift in dubious circumstances.
Over the last few months, there has been concerted efforts to fight corruption and economic crimes in the country that seriously deny the provisions of basic necessities to the citizenry and affect development. The fight has seen several high-ranking officials and entities charged with various offenses, including asset forfeiture and confiscation.
She is also accused of failing to pay taxes and executing a security belonging to the Imperial Bank, which collapsed in 2015 under false pretenses.
This afternoon, I informed the Chief Justice, David Maraga, of my decision to grant consent for the arrest and prosecution of the Deputy Chief Justice, Lady Justice Philomena Mwilu, on criminal charges. This decision has not been taken lightly, but it is the right decision under the law.
Haji issued a warning to judges and investigators who, quote, use their position to enrich themselves at the expense of the Kenyan people. Mwilu was appointed to the Supreme Court in 2016 and shot into the limelight for her role in annulling Kenyatta's first poll win last year. In October, Mwilu's bodyguard was shot and killed the day before the Supreme Court was to hear a petition to postpone the rerun. As a result, Mwilu did not attend the hearing, and the lack of quorum meant the election went ahead unchallenged. Haji said her arrest was a part of an ongoing crackdown against corruption, which has seen several high-ranking officials hauled into court, a rarity in graft-racked Kenya, whose citizens rarely see justice done.
The evidence in our possession reveals that 1. Lady Justice Mwilu abused her office for personal gain, accepted a gift in the form of money in circumstances which undermined public confidence in the integrity of her office, obtaining execution of a security belonging to Imperial Bank Limited, now in receivership by false pretense, unlawful failure to pay taxes, conducted herself in disregard of the law. In view of the above, I have concluded that the evidence is sufficient with a reasonable prospect of conviction, and it is in the public interest that criminal proceedings should be preferred. Law enforcement decisions must be untainted by partisanship, and under my stewardship, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions will adhere fully to the Constitution and not the fleeting interests of anyone. The checks and balances in our Constitution are meant to establish a healthy tension among the branches of government, as each ensures none oversteps its boundaries while keeping within the dictates of our Constitution.
Highlighting deadly airstrikes, rampant sexual violence, and the recruitment of young children as soldiers, UN investigators said Tuesday all sides in Yemen's bloody conflict may have committed war crimes. In their first report, a team of UN-mandated investigators said they had reasonable grounds to believe that the parties to the armed conflict in Yemen have committed a substantial number of violations of international humanitarian law. Many of these violations may amount to war crimes, the report said, pointing to widespread arbitrary detention, rape, torture, and the recruitment of children as young as 8 to take part in hostilities. Camille Gendoubi, who heads the UN's so-called group of independent, eminent international and regional experts, said the investigators had identified a number of alleged perpetrators.
Les informations documentées par le groupe d'experts laissent fortement penser que des violations et des crimes relevant des droits internationaux ont été perpétrés et continuent à être perpétrés au Yémen par les parties au conflit. Que des membres ou des personnes membres du gouvernement du Yémen et de la coalition, y compris l'Arabie saoudite et les Émirats arabes unis, auraient mené des attaques en violation des principes de distinction, de proportionnalité et ou de précaution qui pourraient constituer des crimes de guerre.
The devastating conflict in Yemen has left nearly 10,000 people dead since March 2015, when a Saudi-led coalition intervened to fight Houthi rebels closing in on the last bastion of President Abed Rabbu Mansour Hadi's government. The UN Human Rights Office said Tuesday that some 6,660 civilians were among the dead, while more than 10,500 had been injured. The UN has meanwhile described the situation in Yemen as the world's worst humanitarian crisis.
Par ailleurs, des personnes, des autorités de fait, ont commis des actes qui pourraient constituer des crimes de guerre, y compris la maltraitance, la torture, les atteintes à la dignité des personnes et le recrutement, l'enrôlement ou l'utilisation des enfants de moins de 15 ans pour participer activement à des hostilités.
The UN expert group, which was created by the UN Human Rights Council last September and which needs that body's permission next month to continue its work, detailed a long line of abuses committed by all parties to the conflict. Gendoubi said there is little evidence of any attempt by parties to the conflict to minimize civilian casualties. The report concluded that coalition airstrikes have caused most of the documented civilian casualties, pointing to a large number of strikes on residential areas, markets, funerals, weddings, detention facilities, civilian boats, and medical facilities. The report said there were serious concerns about the targeting process applied by the coalition, pointing out that in many cases there were no apparent military targets in the vicinity of the attacks.
Despite the severity of the situation, we continue to witness a total disregard of the suffering of the people of Yemen. This crisis has reached its peak with no apparent sight of light at the end of the tunnel. It is indeed a forgotten crisis.
Up next, the U.S. responds to Iran's lawsuit against sanctions at the ICJ. A new polling tool launches ahead of the U.S. midterms. Eagle News Washington, D.C. will return in a moment.
And I'm reporting here from Gainesville, Florida. Behind me is the Florida Museum of Natural History, home to a butterfly rainforest featuring hundreds of butterflies from across the world. Do you know another place that has sites from across the world? Well, check out Digital Nest on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. And I am one with 25.
Hey Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to leave some love by giving it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe here at ABC Digital Nest so you don't miss any of our upcoming features.
ASEAN in Focus, Monday to Friday, 2 to 2:30 p.m.
Welcome back. You are watching Eagle News, Washington, D.C. The United States told UN judges Tuesday they had no jurisdiction to rule on Tehran's demand for them to order the suspension of debilitating nuclear-related sanctions against Iran. Iran has argued that U.S. President Donald Trump breached a 1955 treaty with his decision to reimpose the sanctions after withdrawing from the multilateral nuclear accord. But U.S. State Department lawyer Jennifer Newstead told the court in The Hague that it lacks the prima facie jurisdiction to hear Iran's claims. Newstead argued that the United States had the right to protect its national security and other interests.
The United States is here in strong opposition to Iran's request. Iran manifestly cannot meet the conditions required for the indication of provisional measures. Iran sought to characterize itself as a victim, as a law-abiding state brought to its knees by unlawful U.S. sanctions. The suggestion that Iran is a victim does not withstand scrutiny at any level. Whether or not one agrees with the United States decision regarding the JCPOA, there should be no misapprehension of the threat that Iran poses. It also bears emphasis that the economic and social concerns that Iran's representatives raised yesterday, which Iran seeks to lay at the doorstep of the United States, find deep roots in the Iranian government's mismanagement of its own economy and repression of its own population.
The United States and several other world powers lifted sanctions on Iran under a 2015 accord after years of diplomacy. In return, Tehran made commitments not to seek to build nuclear weapons. Trump said the 2015 accord did not do enough to curb the threat from Iran. He pulled out of the accord in May and began reimposing sanctions this month. In the first day of hearings at the ICJ on Monday, Iran's lawyer said the sanctions were threatening the welfare of its citizens and disrupting tens of billions of dollars worth of business deals. Ipsos pollsters are launching a new tool ahead of the U.S. midterm elections that will blend traditional polls, expert and social media content in the hopes of improving accuracy 2 years after Donald Trump's surprise victory. According to Ipsos pollsters, who are armed with new tools to face their first big test after Donald Trump's shock 2016 victory, women and well-off suburban Republicans will play decisive roles in countering the billionaire's loyalists in November's midterm election. Trump's capture of the White House took the entire polling industry by surprise, as election forecasters blew it by predicting a Hillary Clinton win. This year, in order to obtain a more comprehensive view of a complex electorate, Ipsos is using an amalgam of three sources of information: traditional polls, expert analysis from the University of Virginia, and social media trends in a new tool, available for free online and presented Tuesday in Washington.
This tool, the tool that we developed, represents that. It represents a perspective or approach with multiple inputs. We have expert opinion, we have polls, and we have social media. Each of those data sources can be assessed separately, and the analysts can themselves come to their own sort of conclusions about the outcome. So looking back, if we look at polling specifically, there was a problem with underestimating male, rural, lower educated individuals for the most part, and obviously we're focused on that. Looking forward, if we were to tell people what are the leading indicators or those sorts of groups we should focus on, what we would say is the following. First and foremost, women. Women will be very important in determining the outcome of this election.
Young said there has been extensive debate over why so many polling organizations missed the mark 2 years ago. But in Ipsos' view, it was because the market in general depended on one single input, and that was polls.
Social media is a great instrument from a data perspective, helping us predict what will happen. With all of its pluses and minuses, it is an important data source, but it's also a data source that gives us context and meaning behind what's going on. Because it's qualitative in nature, right?
Ipsos will be tracking more than 400 races scheduled for November 6, using its new tool to poll 10,000 likely voters per week, analyze the assessment of a dozen political science professors, and screen up to 5.5 million social media mentions per day. At stake in November are the 435 House of Representatives seats and about 1/3 or 35 seats of the 100-member Senate, both of which are currently controlled by Republicans. The governorship in 36 states, as well as numerous state and local seats, are up for grabs.
Democrats are in a very strong place when it comes to the House. What's interesting is the expert opinion is a little bit more conservative. They don't see the swing as large for the Democrats. Both the polling-based estimates as well as the social media trends both suggest a stronger blue wave. All three suggest that the Democrats will take the House, but probably the reality is somewhere in the middle.
Coming up, the Richmond night market heats up this summer in Vancouver. Eagle News Washington, D.C. will return shortly.
Na sinasabi, hinong-hino na sa kanya.
Ano po bang relevance ng mga dam? Mga napapanood ako sa Hollywood, yung mga sumasabog na dam.
Gong, maraming salamat. Malaking tulong ito mula sa Ilocos hanggang sa NCR, Marikina, Tacloban.
First time nyo bang gamitin yung mga modular tents na rin?
Eagle News teams are fair.
Sa impeachment complaint laban kay Supreme Court Chief Justice Maria Lourdes Sereno, ang ilang maestra...
Ang rekomendasyon na makasuhan ang mga sangkot kasama na ang mga opisyal ng customs.
Hardworking.
PNP Special Action Force. Papaunlad ng isang bata na magiging isang future youth leaders.
Dedicated.
Sa nasawi ay dito natagpuan yung bangkay.
Ito yung kanilang paraan ng pag-aalaga ng mga may sakit na leprosy noong unang panahon.
Committed to public service.
Ang chairmanship ng ASEAN sa bansang Singapore.
Marami yung mga biktima ng mga nawawala. Mamambahan ng Bureau of Customs na nasa merkado na yung mga pinaking produkto.
Sa kapila ng mga kilos protesta na nanatiling
dahil sa mabilis na pagresponde ng mga pamatay sunog, ang apoy mabilis na naapila.
Karoon ng equal opportunity ang ibang mga kababaihan.
Ng mga kabataan at ipinakita sa pamagitan ng kanilang mga likha.
Nanatiling kulang pa rin ang tubig para sa irigasyon, para sa pagtatanim ng ating mga kababayang magsasaka.
As we live in interesting times.
Letters and Music, Lunes hanggang Biyernes, 1:00 hanggang 2:00 ng hapon.
This is Eagle News Washington, D.C. I am Sarah Nackman. Summer is about the outdoors, enjoying the company of friends and family, laughing, spending time, and eating together. In Metro Vancouver, there is a place where you can do all this and a one-stop shop for foodies. Eagle News correspondents Archie Rose, Estella Dominique, and Elise Danielle show us around the Richmond Night Market, dubbed as the largest of its kind in North America, where hundreds of street-style eats await an adventurous palate. Take a look.
Hi, I'm Archie Rose, and with me are our guest correspondents, Estella and Elise. When in Canada, one of the top things to visit is the Richmond Night Market, featuring dozens of stalls that offer international cuisine and diverse products. We're in for a long night. Join us as we explore this must-experience attraction.
Finding parking near the venue is quite challenging, so the most convenient way to get to the Richmond Night Market is by taking the SkyTrain. Remember, your stop is Bridgeport Station. Once off the SkyTrain, you will need to walk just a few minutes to get where the action is. Don't be intimidated by the crowd. As long as you mind your own space, give way to others, fall in line, then you'll be okay. Once you get used to the overwhelming crowd, don't worry, it will only take a minute. It's time to get down to business. Food. My favorite, this giant calamari. These takoyakis are palate pleasers as well, rich and tasty. The rotator hurricane potato seemed to be a crowd favorite, and maybe it has become mine too. Feeling like kebabs, chicken, pork, or beef? They have it all here. Even burritos, seasick burritos, because you'll never know what hungry people crave for.
How do I feed a lot of people? When they're hungry, and I make the burrito for them. Our signature dish is our #1 pork sisig, which is, it has the calamansi, the lemon, and it has all the good stuff.
These hot fish balls are spicy hot. So you chug it down with this fancy watermelon juice, served fresh, and it's rind. Then follow it up with these mocha and chocolate-covered strawberries. This foodie haven is dubbed as the largest Asian night market in North America. With dozens of food vendors serving hundreds of street-style eats, no wonder summer nights spent here are undeniably satisfying. It's like touring the globe without leaving the city.
I like it here because it's culturally diverse and it's like you're eating around the world in one place. My favorite here at the night market is the dim sum.
If you want to take a break from eating, you can also shop for some clothes, beach towels, giant pillows, and toys. But before you call it a night, you gotta make room for dessert. This mango mochi ice cream is something you want to eat over and over and over again.
From king crabs to sweet corns to freshly squeezed lemonade, the Richmond Night Market really makes Vancouver summer nights heat up. I'm Archie Rose at TV Dad.
I'm Estella Dominique.
And I'm Elise Danielle. And we are one with 25.
Hurricane potato. Thanks, guys. That is today's Eagle News Washington, D.C. Join us tomorrow for stories that matter to you. Visit our website at eaglenews.ph and eaglenewslive.com. Like us on Facebook. Also follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/EagleNewsPH. On behalf of Eagle News Washington, D.C., I am Sarah Nackman. Thank you for watching. I am one with 25.